Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Tonight, my guest is Valerie Hoffman. Valerie is a photographer, educator, and a workshop leader based in Pennsylvania. Her love for photography spans nearly every subject. And if you browse the Happiness Hour archives, you'll see why she's one of my favorite guests. She can speak knowledgeably and enthusiastically about virtually every aspect of photography. You can find her on Instagram at Valerie Hoffman Photography, and you can connect with her through her website at valeriehoffmanphotography.com. In tonight's presentation, Photographing Fireworks, a celebration of color and light. Valerie will cover essential topics including gear selection, camera settings, exposure techniques, composition, and timing. Whether you're photographing a local 4th of July celebration or any nighttime light display, you'll leave with practical knowledge and inspiration to capture the magic of fireworks with confidence. Welcome back to the Happiness Hour, Valerie.
Thank you, Linda. It's my pleasure.
All right, give me 2 seconds to let me lay the groundwork. So, Valerie, you were just here a couple of sessions ago. The speaker tonight was Steve Ham, and he had a personal emergency. So, Valerie volunteered to jump in so we would stay on track on the session numbers. So, Valerie, thank you for saying yes, because I don't know that you know the word no, and that works just fine for me.
I know the word no, but yeah. I need like a Happiness Hour hero t-shirt or something. Then you could put your scanny on the back.
Yeah, don't tell them what we talked about.
I won't tell anybody.
We might my brain is like spinning with ideas. So Joe Toth, be on the lookout. All right. Let me give the screen to you and you can do your thing.
Okay. So I'm going to start with just some information and then I'll start, raffling through all my pictures. So you'll just get to see my face for a little bit. But I volunteered fireworks because I love fireworks. Like I shoot fireworks a lot. I haven't done any this season yet, but I shoot it as often as I can. And I live a block away from the Reading Phillies Stadium, which is the farm team for the Philadelphia Phillies. And so probably like most of you, your minor league teams, there's fireworks every weekend at their home. And I try and take advantage of that just for fun. I love it. So a couple things, like if you're new to fireworks, I would like to know that. So maybe put in the chat, are you brand new, you've never shot fireworks, or you've tried it and it didn't turn out so well, or yeah, I got this, but I'll listen anyway, whatever it is. Kind of let me know that. And I will.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I will go through, specifics on how to shoot and exposure settings and all that. But I will offer, if anybody goes on to my website and signs up for my newsletter, I'll send you a copy of my notes. And there's even more going to be in the notes than in the presentation itself. So feel free to do that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of people have put into the chat. There's a couple of people that are new. Dawn is in here saying she's tried it, but she hasn't been satisfied with her results. Andy says, I never feel like I know what I'm doing. So this is going to be good for him. So I think
cool. Yeah. For you, Andy, we're gonna rock it. And no, that's good to know. But I'm gonna go like just from the beginning anyway. So I think the most important thing to start with is planning. That's really the key to success. So, there's going to be a lot of fireworks, I think, this year with the 250th celebration. So I think a simple Google search would get you to find out where anything is locally. So check that out. And then I would next, once I figure out where I'm going, and I would make a list like calendar date, there's fireworks here, fireworks there. Like if you want to get good at it, you really need to do it a lot. So take advantage of all the extras you might even see this year. But definitely do research then when you pick a place, because you want to find out exactly where the fireworks are going to be set off from so that you know where to stand. I don't know if anybody's ever showed up somewhere and a fireworks are like behind a tree or whatever, where it's not good wherever you are. So you definitely, once you pick a place, you want to scout, figure out where they're going to be set off from, where you can stand, whatever. And I would suggest scouting the location in advance in the daylight if you've never been before. Like if it's a stadium and it's always the same, you can get used to that. But like you want to go in the light too, because you want to find out, is there a hole you're going to fall into when you're walking in the dark? Or are you not going to be allowed to stand here once, it gets dark, or any of those important things. And even in some cases, like we've been chased outside the Philadelphia Art Museum with a tripod. So you may need to know if tripods are illegal, because that's definitely something you'll need to use. Or do you need a permit? Because the minute you're carrying a tripod, everybody thinks you're a professional. So you're going to have to deal with that. But when you find your place, then you want to be conscious of a few other things besides falling in a hole or whatever. But you want to be conscious of whether where you'd be standing would be blocking other people, or will other people come and stand in front of me? So that's important. And then you also want to watch for power lines, which we just see so many, we don't even think of it, but you want to know if there's power lines that are going to be kind of in your view, if there's going to be any chance that headlights will be shining right into your view, all those things that can actually wreck an image later or give you post-processing nightmares. You don't want to be under a street light or a street light right in front of you. That can cause lens flare and just be a mess. So there might even be some things where you see parts of that. Um, and so after you have all that figured out, then I would look for a view where you have something else dramatic in the scene, and we'll talk about it. So for those of you just starting, just capturing good fireworks in the sky will be a great start, and maybe one burst and then you move to two. But eventually getting fireworks over something cool, like a bridge, like the state capitol, whatever, can really, add that extra cool impact to your images. So arrive early, figure all that stuff out. And I would just, last couple quick tips, pack a flashlight so that if you have to look in the dark at your camera, you're able to do that. Also maybe something bright that can get you back to your car if it's a dark area, like for, fairs and things, that's grass and you're who knows where. And I would also recommend that you have your camera completely set up before you arrive in the dark and then you're trying to fiddle around. Like I'm usually pretty prepared. When I shot an air show on Sunday, I never shoot air shows. I just showed up and started shooting with what I thought were good settings. And I didn't realize that I was at 100 frames a second or something. So in 4 planes, I had filled a card almost. So you want to know what's going on and have everything set appropriately for it. And definitely make sure you have a fully charged battery. That just should go without saying. And then gear is really simple. You just need a camera that you can set your exposure manually and that you can focus manually. It can be film, it can be digital. Just you need to be able to control it manually. Your camera will never focus on a burst that doesn't even last a second, and your camera will never meter right on a black sky with light just popping into it. So just those two main things. You'll want a sturdy tripod, preferably something that comes up to your eye level so you're not kind of craning your neck. A cable release, one of these little corded gadgets. It's really simple. And then probably most of your shots would be a wide angle zoom, but you could be where there's fireworks and you're far away and you could use a telephoto. Like I'll use, I have some examples of that. So, and then you'll see settings as I go through, but the other thing would be to shoot in camera raw. If you shoot in JPEG, at least shoot in JPEG and RAW, because there is definitely some post-processing that you need to do, especially if you get really bright bursts that overexpose, and maybe you can save some details with RAW, but probably won't be able to with JPEG. You can set your camera to auto white balance. That doesn't really matter. Usually that's fine. And basically my settings are anywhere from F11 to F16. I usually start at F11. Sometimes I'll stop down if they're too bright or whatever. But a good starting point is F11. and your base ISO. So absolutely get your camera out of auto ISO. That'll be a disaster. Your camera has no idea you're going to do long exposures on a tripod. So set it for your base ISO. So that is for Olympus, for Canon, it's 200, for Nikon is 100. I think Sony's also 100, but like if you were in auto ISO on a bright day, what would it automatically go to? That's your base ISO and that's your best quality. So just start there, F11, and then most of you will shoot in bulb exposure. So that's kind of the key if you've never done it or have struggled to do it any other way. But bulb, B-U-L-B, is where you hold the shutter open for however long you want. So if I use this cable release, I press the button in and I'd leave it open for the full burst and then release and open again and release. Some people use a 2-second self timer. You're going to miss the action. Some people actually use a couple second shutter speed. The timing will be off. Trust me, use bulb. And that should be kind of it. And then, when you get there, focus on something where the fireworks is going off. So like I'm at a stadium and I'm far outside, so I can focus on the edge of the stadium and I'm good. State Capitol, focus on the Capitol, fireworks are going over that. So whatever you're using in there, if you have nothing and you're just shooting into the sky, then maybe set your lens at infinity, and then you'll just have to look at the first image and see if you're sharp. So you would kind of start there. And that's pretty much it for the settings. Oh, image stabilization. So you want to turn that off. If you're on a tripod, turn that off on the camera, off on the lens, because that will or could cause vibrations, which I've had it cause vibrations on the tripod. And then, whatever focal length just again depends on how far away you are. So let's get at it. Did we have any questions with all that good stuff? Are we good?
Nope, you're
All right.
good.
All right. So I have this kind of broken down in topics as I usually do, because, that's my brain, how it works. So let's talk about why we need a tripod first. Okay. So see how the lines are kind of squiggly there? Let me get rid of this. So that's because you moved. You will never be able to keep the camera steady even for a full second. So here's a couple where I was hand holding because I actually forgot my tripod. I was at a picnic with friends, whatever. And that's what you'll get. Now you may say, well, that looks kind of cool. Then by all means, try some handheld ones, but that's not really probably the look we're going for. Okay. Second thing, if you're just starting, then make your goal be to just get a single burst, sharp, and well exposed. There's nothing shameful about that. Here's kind of one of those neat little trick fireworks, but go for one. And then when you're able to do, get one, then let's leave the lens open for more than one shot and try and get multiple bursts in the camera. So here's a couple different ones, and here's even a ground display that's happening while there's stuff kind of flying in the air. Oh, I forgot to point a couple things out. If you're looking up at the information up in the left, if it says CR2, that was when I shot Canon, and that was 90% of those would be APS-C sensor. If it says .ORF, that's Olympus and it's micro four thirds. So what it says for the focal length will not match if you're a full frame person, if that makes sense. But aperture, shutter speed, whatever will be the same. So here's one where I got multiple bursts. The problem is if a lot of places set them all off at the same height and same angle, and so they just overlap. And so if that's the way your show is going, then you'd probably be better with having only one or two bursts instead of this chaotic mess. Okay. And well, I can tell you here a little tip. I'll wait till I get to a foreground subject and then I'll tell you that it won't be as confusing. But sometimes it works. If you can get bursts that are at different places in the scene, then that makes for a great shot. The problem is when you're on bulb and you're holding your little shutter button open, you're not seeing the screen. So you kind of have to get a vague idea. Okay, I saw it here. If I get another one right there, I better close my shutter because it's going to overlap. But if you think that one went here and one went there and one went there, then you can keep it open. You're just trying to avoid them being on top of each other. All right. So here was one where, kind of a lot went off and it kind of got a little messy, but it was kind of neat. But they were set off at varying heights for a little while. So that kind of worked. Um, and here kind of worked too. So that's your goal then, is to be able to get multiple exposures. But here's what happens if they shoot off a ton that are right over top of each other. Then you'll get this messy, blown out thing. So my friend Kim and I have this saying where don't be greedy, like stop at 3, because inevitably anything more than that, you're probably going to regret and have messed up a really cool shot. All right. So that's just some examples there. So let's talk about also, let's see where we are, where you can include a nice foreground, which is my favorite thing to do, where I don't just have fireworks in the air, but now I have something cool on the ground. So a lot of fairs end with fireworks, carnivals, whatever. So if they have the first thing, if there's a fair, I want to know if they have amusement rides, and if yes, are they having fireworks? And then I do my due diligence and find out where they're going to be set off from. And then here, like I said, I find a place where hopefully I'll get, several rides in there and it'll look pretty cool. So let me just take a peek where we're at here. So let's talk about location scouting, like I said. So some of you, if you follow me, have seen a ton of pictures of fireworks over a pagoda. Well, we go to the same place every year. The city of Reading puts off fireworks on New Year's Eve. And so we've gone to the same place every year. Problem is, the show's at midnight, and the best place, which is not this, is in a cemetery in the city. Now that's probably where people go to die. So we thought, let's find some other place where we feel a little safer. So we found another view of the pagoda at a little bit different angle, and we set up, and neither one of us had ever been there. So when the fireworks went up, they were way off to the right here, as you see, like they were nowhere close to being over the pagoda. And that was epic fail. And there was nowhere there that we could run. We were up on this ledge and above the street. And so that was a mess. And so here's another one that went off, but just by chance, I call it friendly fire. Someone in the city shot off fireworks, and this is a burst that's closer to me. So this was the show, this is the burst, and another one from the city. And so that kind of was cool, and that saved the image, and I cropped out the fireworks that, wasn't anywhere near my pagoda, and that's kind of cool, but it's a funny story. So what I did for these, I think, if I can show it, let me make you guys go away, is I think, oh, maybe I can't show it. Yeah, so the fireworks was way over here to the left, and I moved, I mean the pagoda was, and I picked it up with the clone tool and I moved it over here. So that's how I got the fireworks in my image. That was a screw up. But and I didn't know I could do it. My friend did. I'm like, how did you do that? So let's keep thinking or looking at some other options for location. So here's that day where I didn't have the tripod and had never been there and didn't know where they were going up, and I was sitting right by a lifeguard chair. So that's another thing that you would want to look for and not be near. And in this case, I was standing in the middle of the parking lot and the traffic, like buses were going by. And so now I have all these lights cutting through my image there. So that's a mess and a bad place to stand. Also could get hit. Even here where the bus didn't go by, I still have traffic lights and reflections off hoods and all that good stuff. So that one's not as horrible. It's kind of fun, but it can definitely be a distraction. So you want to watch that. Here's another one where I was not able to scout. I had never been here before. And when the fireworks started, I just ran to try and get lined up. And it turns out I was at a car show in the middle of cars. And I got behind this lady just standing there. And I actually kind of liked her in the foreground. But not having to panic would have been better. So here's a really cool place that we started going on the 4th, and the fireworks. So first time there, everybody said the fireworks was going to go off right here. And so that's where I set up. I saw pictures where it went off right here. And so there's 100 photographers lined up. And when it got dark, the fireworks went off over here behind the trees where I couldn't even see them. And so in the dark with thousands of people, we had to grab our tripods and run to a totally different location and angle and just try and be not in the way so that we could get them over the building that we were trying to do, which thankfully we were able. But the following year, when I talked to somebody, they said, no, they're absolutely going to be right there. And so go back to place one, and sure enough, they were right there. And this, now I'm in Olympus, hang on, and this is a 6 millimeter Laowa, which is super wide. And I'm using that so that I can get the reflection down in the water, as well as kind of the scene here, which is pretty. So cropped a little tighter. So here's another first time for fireworks at this location. Somebody said, I don't like to be in traffic. So if it's a big fair or something, there's going to be a lot of people. I'm not probably going to go if I have to sit in traffic. But somebody said, hey, you can see it from this development up on the hill. So I went there, and I have no idea where they're actually going to go off. And I saw this roof like that was yellow and kind of lit, and I thought, I wonder. And when I was standing here, the fireworks came off over here. So then I ran like crazy to try and get like kind of a neater shot where I could line up the fireworks over top. And it's like, it's very different. It's weird. You wonder what the heck that is. But that's just this kind of open roof that I was able to kind of save my shot and get the fireworks over top, and a couple more. And it's kind of neat because, you know, it's a leading line. It's a point right up to the fireworks. So you just kind of make do with whatever you can. If there's a cat landing on my head, I apologize. So here's the stadium. And what was really cool is one year for Christmas, they did a big light show, and every weekend they did fireworks. And so some of you, if you see my presentation, know I love holiday lights. Well, holiday lights and fireworks was the bomb. So that is a great kind of location. Again, something that you want to know. Living in Reading, I'm an hour away from Harrisburg. That's our state capital. So we went there, and I knew I wanted to get some fireworks with the capital in it. So I had to figure out where it was set off. And fireworks is set off from this river in front here. Oops. I think I have a picture coming up. So I had to find a way across the river to get the capital and the fireworks together. Come on. Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls has fireworks, I think, every Wednesday through Saturday, maybe in the summer. And it just so happened that when I lived in Lansing, I had to go to Boston, and the shortest way was through Canada. So I stayed overnight so I could get the fireworks. I wanted to be in the middle of the Rainbow Bridge if you've ever been there, but I left my passport in the hotel, so I had to be on the edge. They wouldn't let me on the bridge. But you know, you get city lights, you have the waterfall here, the falls, and it's just kind of a neat picture. So you want to be thinking something like that, cityscapes, anything. And here's another one, foreground, where I'd never been at the place. Here's shot by day. And then I saw the truck pull up for the fireworks. So I knew he was going to be setting up there. So I positioned myself directly across from him, and then had, you know, was directly in front. And I love reflections. So I was able to get some neat shots with the fireworks reflected in the water. And what's cool is they set them off from like 3 different things, so they were moved around a little bit. State Capitol in Lansing, Michigan. So think now of some neat buildings. Like, I don't know if you'd ever get fireworks, you guys, like in the Austin area. What's that building with that looks like the owl eyes? How cool would that be? That's probably too tall. But something cool like that where you can, get something in the foreground would be neat. Um, and then this is something that was, just south of Lansing. They had this neat, it's a man-made waterfall that lights up and they have concerts there. And I went one time and I'm like, this could be a cool foreground. And it was. So they shot fireworks up right behind that, changed colors constantly. So, that was pretty fun. Even the ground show, so then I could get closer. Amusement park. And man, if you're at an amusement park and there's a lot of neat rides that you can just move around, you could get a ton of different shots. I try to just be set and not move because too many bad things can happen in the dark. You move your focus or whatever. So back to focus, if I was, I'm there in the light, I would pre-focus like say right here. And that's at least 35 feet away. So I know that my fireworks and my amusement rides are going to be sharp. Here's the problem with Ferris wheels. I love the Ferris wheel, but it takes so long to load and unload that a lot of times the fireworks, like it won't be moving and it's not as cool. But when it is moving, how cool is that? So that's the ultimate goal is the Ferris wheel in motion, giving me some cool light painting. But sometimes it doesn't always work out. And you just have to. So I'll tell you here with exposure, if you're going to have things in the foreground, you need to figure out what a good exposure is of these amusement rides. Like I was shooting them in the dark before the fireworks started. What will be a good scene? Actually, let me get out of that exposure where, I'm not burning that out. It's not underexposed. And that was about 6 seconds. And so then I knew that I needed my shutter open each time for 6 seconds. So if the bursts only lasted for a second or two, then I would leave it open even in between in the dark so that I'm getting that good exposure on my foreground. Does that make sense to everyone? Like, because if you just leave it open for a really long time, this will all get burned out. Or if it's too short, where you only get one or two bursts and close it, this could be really underexposed. So when you have a foreground lighted subject, it's kind of a tricky little balancing act. And then at this location on the beach where I forgot my tripod while we were waiting, there was a killer sunset. This was Ludington, Donna. And this kid just lit up a sparkler and he was silhouetted. And, I took the shot and it's one of my favorite shots, like really ever. So don't just sit there and say, I'm only shooting fireworks and done. All right. So you saw this, but let's talk lenses again. So from this, what lens you choose depends on where you're going to be in relation to the fireworks. The fireworks are always going to be way higher than your foreground subject, than you think it is. And even with 6 millimeter, I got a lot in, but not all of it. Now I could have, like pointed up higher and just got this area and not got the reflection and not had this fireworks cut off. But, it's kind of this balancing act. Um, and here, this was my widest angle at that time. And so, hang on, I have a little panic here. But so they did get kind of cut off when they shot them super high. So sometimes, maybe if you had seen that or seen it while the fireworks was going off, then move yourself back if you can. So I really hope that I don't lose power in a minute. Now, here one day I was leading a workshop at the Reading Phillies, and we all had our telephoto lenses on. And I think I forgot to bring my smaller lens, and so I tried to shoot the fireworks with this 80 to 300, and yeah, it didn't work. I didn't even know where in the sky to actually point and get these close-ups. But one or two shots did actually kind of work out. But again, you just need to know where you're going to be and everything, and maybe bring a couple lenses if this is your first place to uh, to be. And really quick, so horizontal or vertical? That's a good question too. I think most of the time you want to go vertically, but in this case, horizontal can work, or it can be both. Same here, horizontal, but there's a lot of black sky. And so vertical, um, ends up getting rid of all that mess. And I don't know, I put a star filter on and I thought that was going to be cool. This was a really long time ago, so give me grace, but it's really get rid of that. But again, look at this. I had a 24 millimeter lens, but I was cropped too tight and my fireworks was cut off. So when you're composing, leave more than enough room in the beginning, get your focus set with way more than you think. Be minimal at the bottom, of your foreground. And then as the fireworks are going off, if you see that you have too much room, like way too much room, and your fireworks are tiny, then zoom in a little more, refocus. But it's really a shame if you're just cutting off your bursts. Another one, horizontal. I like it. I see more stadium lights. So this is the inside of that stadium at Christmas, but I've got this overhang and this flag is distracting. So, vertical, cut some stuff off, but I think that's the better choice for this scene. And I like to just pick it and go. I don't flip during fireworks. They go up so fast that you don't want to waste it. Another one where I was cropped way too tight and it looks like rubbish. So just some tips there. Another one, great scene, great reflections. I'm cropped too tight. Why I had to zoom in and I lost the fireworks there. So if you come away with nothing else, and I'm trying to reiterate that, leave space. Another one of those cool fancy fireworks, I cut it off because I was zoomed too tight. And, this looks like the waterfalls are coming out of nowhere and I cut off this pretty lighted building. So these are long ago epic fails. And this one too, I was, too tight and off. But here's kind of a neat composition where, like for 4th of July or something, there's a flagpole out front and I got down right under the flagpole and shot the fireworks with that. It had to be silhouetted. It would be nice if I would have had somebody that could, hit it with a flashlight or something, but that can be a neat image. And even shooting from inside and maybe getting some of the crowd could be a nice shot. So these are just some different, suggestions for you. Again, water. Didn't know the boat was going to float into the scene, but, there it was. But I just love all the extra color. And then for this scene, this is where I was kind of in the parking lot, thought nobody would leave because it's fireworks. You don't leave during fireworks, but cars started moving and I would have gotten hit. So I had to run in between the parked cars. And then I saw this reflection and I'm like, oh, like I never would have figured, to go look for that or anything, but it looked so cool that now every year I try and set up in between cars so I can get that because that's very different. And now you have to watch because you need something where, I'm at a pretty wide angle so that this is focused, and this is in sharp focus as well, which pretty much I think I focused here and that was more than enough. Look at it even here. Like that is so, so fun. Now, if only the Ferris wheel was, spinning at that point too. A bridge, reflections, a boat, people watching on the bridge. These tell a bigger story than just fireworks in the sky. We'll talk about that smoke in a little bit. And here's when it, just kind of all comes together. Any questions about any of that good stuff?
There are a couple of questions, but I'm going to hold those. They're general.
Okay. All right. So here's a funny thing. I read an article and I'd never thought about this, but you got to decide what you think about the tail. So the tail is this light streak that you get if your lens is opened as the burst is going up. So in this case, as soon as I heard the poof, the rocket being shot up, I flicked my shutter and opened it. And so you got that little light streak and then you got it opening. So I never really minded it, but it's something that you want to think about. What just happened here? Hang on, I lost my keyboard. Go here. So, like here it looks kind of cool. It's got some color in it, and there's obviously a little bit of wind blowing, but you just have to decide. If you hate it, you have two options. The first one is when the burst goes off you have to wait and not open the shutter until just before it's going to open. Like you can precisely time that easily. No. Or you can painstakingly remove it in post processing, or you could just embrace the tail. So there you go. All right. And coming down here. So let's talk exposure. So this image, this is a tough one. This is, I try not to shoot when, you have those, we just call them the bangers, where it's just an explosion with kind of white, but there's no fireworks burst. And so this is definitely underexposed. Like right here's the Capitol that you saw before, way underexposed, but then this part's overexposed. So at 1/10 of a second, I'm not even close to getting enough light in the foreground. So that goes back to, if I know my scene is going to take 5 seconds or 4 seconds to get the Capitol and that cityscape lit, then I have to leave that shutter open that long in order to get that, or you could never post process that and get it good. Same thing here, it's kind of good exposure. It's a bad picture, so let's guarantee that. But kind of good exposure of the foreground, but now the fireworks is blown out. And sometimes that is a problem that you'll just have to deal with. But when you get a lot of white ones, they can just really, and here's another good reason. Like I had some nice fireworks going before all these things shot off. So don't let too many in, and you're gonna get bad shots. Like you can't avoid that. Underexposed. Again, now I have good exposure here, but I'm way underexposed here. And this was back, in the older days, and there was going to be a ton of noise if I tried to bring this out. This was way underexposed. In fact, all of those were, and I had to do a lot of editing to bring up the water and everything. Now here's a well-exposed image where I got the reflections, I got the Capitol, all that good stuff. So that's your goal. And whether you include, some water and reflections or not, and then I had to move so I could stop cutting off the fireworks. But you want a good thing. Here we're overexposed. It's a little bright on the bottom. Now, if you're overexposed, you could easily tone that down, use a linear gradient or something in Lightroom. So as long as your fireworks are not totally blown out, you could probably fix some of your foreground stuff. Probably not this bright thing in the back, the casino. But yeah, so again, I got an exposure reading for the scene just with that star barn, and then had to kind of work within that. And here, blown out Ferris wheel, because that was brighter than everything else. Now, is there anything that can save the day for foreground and background? Well, if you are an Olympus shooter, yes, there is. And this is one huge reason why I absolutely love Olympus and I would never change from it. So Olympus has what's called a live composite mode. So let me back up to you guys that have to use bulb mode, right? So when you press the shutter in, all you have is a dark screen, right? You have no idea where your fireworks are, whether you have a good exposure, any of that. But in live composite, you figure out what your exposure is for the foreground, you set that in your camera, and then you start this running. And now every new burst of light will be added, but the existing doesn't get overexposed. So this Ferris wheel, these cars, these will never overexpose, and it will just keep adding new bursts. So if they started putting some over here and putting some over there, I could leave this open for a minute and I wouldn't lose all of this in the foreground. So here's some different examples. We're here. I got a good exposure first for the ballpark outside, and then I could I had the camera set for 3 seconds, but I just left it open until I was done. I had enough fireworks in there because I was getting greedy. Look how many different, bursts I have in there. But I'm seeing that on my screen. So instead of guessing like anybody shooting with bulb, I can see 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh, I better just shut it down. Same here. These are a ton of bursts in here. Now this big white one ruined it, but my pagoda never overexposed, and I was able to leave this open. It could have been 5 seconds, could have been longer, depending on how long it took for the fireworks to go off. Same here. I got a good exposure. I don't even know what Mopar stands for. Some of you guys may, but I came down and there were all these lighted cars outside the stadium. And I'm like, cool, let me include them. So I figured out a good exposure and then used live composite and just kept letting bursts come in, and I'm never overexposing the cars or
Hey,
the stadium.
Valerie. Hey,
Yes,
Valerie.
ma'am.
I'm
Yes, ma'am.
watching I'm watching the clock tonight, but a question for you. Is there any way that you could squeeze in an edit on a photo to
Yeah.
walk people
Yep.
through one?
Yep.
Um,
That's coming right up.
okay.
Yep. Yep. We're almost there.
Okay.
So, but I got to hit. Okay. I got to hit this next one because this is what is going on. Skip that one behind my head. So creative. So if you've never seen this before, this is called the focus pull method. And what that is, so now I don't want a lighted foreground. All I want is one burst in a plain sky because anything else will be distracting. So you start camera on tripod, got a cable release in my hand. In this case, I'm not on the live composite. I'm on bulb, and you have to trigger the shutter when the burst is about to open with your right hand. And now with my left hand, I'm starting with the lens out of focus. And as soon as that burst opens, I turn it into focus so that, and that motion gives me a blobby effect. Now, one thing I'll point out, in order for it to work better and get this really blobby effect, you want a wider aperture. And so what I had to do for that is I'll have a polarizer on and then like a 4-stop neutral density so that I can now really get a longer exposure, so that I can do this, get wide open. Now, if you don't get it in sharp focus, it's going to be blurry like that. So here are just some examples of focus pull, which is this one burst. I'm out, then I'm in. And the whole show, I'm in and out. And people outside, if I'm outside the stadium, which is where I normally am, they're looking at me like she's an idiot and has no idea what she's doing. But in the meantime, I'm creating fireworks flowers. Again, I didn't get it in focus here. So since you're watching time, another one out of focus. And sometimes you'll just get like, what in the world? It's an awful mess. So you won't get everyone great. Another awful mess. I don't even know what happened with that one, but this one's super cool. So you're just doing that, do that over and over again. So if you've been shooting fireworks, you're a little bit comfortable with it. Maybe you want to try this, because these are all just start out of focus and move it into focus as the burst opens. It's crazy. Your arm will start to hurt by the end of it. So those are just some different. Now here's what happens if you get too many bursts, it looks awful. Like it's just chaotic. So you want to try and stick with one. Here 3 went off at the same time, so I got that. And now if I do have something in the foreground, I'm going to have to remove it, which I'll show you. And then this one, I have no idea if I tried to zoom it, whether I moved it by accident, whatever I did, but swiggles are kind of cool too. So maybe try zooming a fireworks again. Instead of turning out of focus, start with it in and just zoom it in and out, in or out. But, play. If you have the opportunity to do it a lot, like it's not one big thing like you're at Washington, D.C., don't play there. Get nice shots with monuments or something. But other than that, play and be creative. And then last other topic was just watch out for things that can really trash your images. So this is a New Year's Eve fireworks, and it was so foggy. This is all we ever saw. So my friend's like, where are the fireworks? And I'm like, that's what's making the sky glow. We could never see them because of the clouds and the fog. That's just somebody setting them off in the city. And wind. So look how the fireworks are blowing. So if it's a really windy day, I would still try it. If it's really windy, I wouldn't go out at all. But if it's a little breezy, I'd go out. But you may get some interesting things because the fireworks are going to kind of blow as they're opening. So there's some examples. And then smoke. There's always smoke with your fireworks. It gets worse as the display goes on, and by the finale, there's so much smoke, it's killer. If it's a very hot, humid day with no breeze, I'm not even going to shoot because every image is going to look like this. But if there's a breeze on a hot, humid day, then there might be a chance that the smoke will blow away. So look at some of these. So wind is definitely a factor. Here it was kind of cool blowing the flag, but um, just those. But the smoke, that's what I'll show you. One of the things I'm going to show you in a second. So you want editing? Let's do it. So let me show you this because people wouldn't even normally think of this. So this is um, the color that the fireworks was. And I went in here to the color mixer and I went into the hue and I went into this little picker and I clicked on the color. Hang on, I have to click on the picker. And if I drag up, I'm changing the hue. If I drag down, I'm changing the hue. So maybe you don't like lime green or something like this, then you can just grab the color picker and put it on your color and start moving around. And so that's how I got this one. And that's how I got this one. So that's that same fireworks, but I just changed the color. Come on, move. So, and I already told you this one where I moved the pagoda into that position because I had missed it. And you could also, now I'm just trying this firsthand here, click generative AI, go into the AI remove, and see, this is totally distracting. Everything else is good. So sometimes you might ask it to remove that blob. Come on. And look at that. It just saved that image. And I don't even need to look for number 2 or number 3. So that worked great. Hang on. I'm about to kill my cat. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. All right. So you got to close this. And then, you know, you're tired of the pagoda. I know it. I don't know what I did there. So here, there was this little blue blob in the background here. So I just used AI remove to remove that. So don't just give up on your shots if they have something in them. Same thing here. This had lights in it or some other stray bursts, and I just used the AI remove tool. So using AI and just got rid of that right off the bat. And then here, Frankies, what I do with smoke. So the original, get out. So the original, hang on, I got distracted. Uh-huh. Before, after. All right. Sorry, I redid this. So I go in masking, okay? And I get a brush and I will take down the blacks. I will add a lot of dehaze. I'm trying to get rid of the smoke, right? Because it's wrecking it. And then I will just run over my sky. And this is so bad that you can't totally get rid of it, but you can calm it down a lot. You could take your exposure way down. You could gently then make it smaller and go in between things and get rid of a pretty good bit of that. You have to kind of get in there a little to make it look like you're not, that it's not fake. And that even toned down this as well. So that's one way that you can save any of your smoky shots. And here's, I think, one last one. So look at all this smoke here. Like, I really like this fireworks, but this is a mess. So I hit K for brush. Oh, and now, because I do so many fireworks and I have to do this a lot, I've actually created my own preset. I call it fireworks. I hope we're not recording the murder of this cat. And then I just start painting and I go in between. I would make it smaller. I'm trying to do this, fast. And if it's not quite like these are really bad um, smoke, so then I may make it darker. Oh, and now I may, just come in here with a thinner brush. So you see what I mean? And you can get rid of a lot of that. So you can, in post-processing, save some of your images. And that's why I said you really are going to need to do, some editing. So again, here is our before, and then with a little vibrance, a little this and that. But look at how, we were able to get rid of all that. And one thing to point out in basic editing, like I usually do like clarity, but the more, let's see it working. Hang on, I got to get back to this. The more clarity you add, the more smoke it'll bring up. So you have to be really careful of clarity if you have smoke, that will just make it worse. But anything that you do often, just create your own preset. You could have a couple of fireworks, like fireworks extreme, where you have a lot of dehaze and everything, or just minimal. And that way you don't have to keep clicking all your sliders each time. So there was your demo, and I still am less than an hour, Linda.
And very impressive.
After I went flying in panic. So,
All right, take down your screen. I've got two questions for you.
okay.
Okay, so the first one is going to be from Carolyn. Have you ever done a composite of several firework shots in one? She's like to know how you do it.
Um, no, because as there are people on here that will affirm, I don't have a lot of Photoshop skills. And that's why I learned to, try and get them in, just in one thing. But yeah, obviously, and you could tell if they're fake, because people carefully place them. Um, I never have because I don't know how.
Okay.
And because I try and get it right in
Okay.
camera, if I
Sure.
can do it in
Okay.
camera, I should say, not get it right. I'm not opposed to anybody that does it. It's just,
Not your thing. Okay, so Donna's question is, and this is a great question. How do you get your information about where the fireworks are going to go off?
um, a variety of places. So if it's a fair, I will usually get there hour like before dark, even so that I'm not parking a mile away and I'm wandering around and getting my funnel cake or whatever, and enjoying the fair. And then I know where the rides are and I can start playing with them. And then I will ask somebody there, okay, hey, where do the fireworks go off? Oh, they go off back there. So then I know how. So
Okay.
you could try Googling it, but I don't think that would work. You can look at other pictures, like say you want to get them over the state capitol in Michigan. Well, you know that they go from the backside, and so you would be on the east side. You know what I mean? So you just have to figure out, look at other pictures if there are any to start. But you can always ask security or something. There's somebody that can tell you, or go find the fire truck. I mean, the fire truck is going to be where they're setting them off, and ask, or figure that out.
Okay. I like that last one. All
There you
right.
go. Go find the firefighters. Yeah, because you don't want to be running, especially picture a fair or something. Like there's a lot of dumb people everywhere. Like you're gonna miss a lot of pictures. So
All right, Valerie, thank you for doing this.
that was it. That was all
That
the
that was
questions.
it. Well,
Wow.
that was the only, yeah, we've got some pros in the room tonight. All right, I'm going to shut down this session and thank you again for jumping in last minute. I truly, truly appreciate you. I don't always tell you that, but I do. So, let me just say thank you, and we'll see you again soon. But next week, Hamad Reza Shashahan, and I'm completely butchered his name, but he'll be here and I'll have him pronounce it for us. He's going to be here to share his presentation, Grasslands, an overlooked destination for nature photography. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next week.